An acquaintance's husband Mike was a real hunter. For many years he wandered through the woods in the company of his faithful dog Laika. By the time of the incident, the dog was already old, and he was taken with him just symbolically to walk, as his eyesight and sense of smell were no longer the same, and he moved slowly. Mike and his hunting friends traveled by automobile to the marshes. The road was bad and the trip took a long time. They camped at the edge of the forest, near the swamp. At first they had planned to go exploring, but it started to rain and it became too dark and overcast. The dog took a seat by the fire and dozed peacefully after supper. The men talked and sat around the fire until late into the night, especially when the rain had almost stopped. Their conversation was interrupted by a sound from the swamp. It was clapping, similar to the sound of applause. At first they listened, trying to figure out what those strange sounds were. Mike was surprised that the old dog, who usually didn't react to anything, suddenly became agitated, indicating danger. Mike explained to his friends that a normal bird or animal would not have caused such a reaction in the dog, especially considering his age. 10 minutes passed, and the pops continued. They changed to multiple, getting closer. Another 15 minutes passed, and the sounds subsided. No one could figure out what it was. Though the men stood with guns and flashlights, no one dared to move away from the fire. The dog continued to worry, pointing toward the woods where he thought the source of the sounds was. They packed up camp and decided to spend the night in the car, as no one wanted to stay in the tents. Despite his friend's suggestion that they leave the dog outside, Mike refused. The dog settled down in his owner's arms in the car. An hour passed and Mike still couldn't sleep as the dog continued to worry. He knew his dog well, and that made it even more worrisome. Their fears were confirmed when pops sounded just outside the car. The campfire went out and the area around it became dark. The driver turned on his headlights, hoping to scare off the unknowns. It was decided to drive away from the place. The hunt was forgotten, and even in the light of day no one was going to go that way. They drove in the dark, clutching their rifles in their hands. After driving a few kilometers, the car got stuck in the mud and they had to get out to push it out. They calmed down, realizing that the source of their fear must be left behind. When they got out to push the car, Mike set the dog down on the grass. They heard the dog howling and clapping that merged into one sound. They tried to find the source of the sounds in the darkness, but were unsuccessful. It seemed like the sound was everywhere. How long it went on, no one knew, but suddenly it went quiet. Mike realized to his horror that the dog had disappeared. They tried to find him, but to no avail. When they returned home, they were emotionally exhausted. Some of them never ventured out into the woods again. And Jack the dog is still remembered to this day.